Hey folks, this is Rob from Learn by the Drop at learnbythedrop.com. Learn by the Drop is a place to learn Drupal, and this is lesson 4 in the Getting Started with Drupal series. And in this lesson, we're going to cover adding contributed modules, some necessary contributed modules to our Drupal website. In the previous lesson, we looked at updating the theme. So we're going to add some modules that are very necessary in building just about any kind of website with Drupal. We're going to add a module called Mollum for spam protection, Path Auto, which is going to allow us to automate the paths to different pages on our site. FCK Editor is a what you see is what you get editor, which will be very helpful for creating posts and pages. IMCE is a module that will enable us to upload and insert images very easily. And then we'll also add a module called Poor Man's cron, which will allow for automated running of the cron function on the site, which, among other things, will allow us to re-index the search without a heck of a lot of technical knowledge required. So first thing we need to do is we need to do a little shopping and head on over to Drupal.org. And one of the things you'll notice on Drupal.org is there's a handy link on the home page that will take you to the module section. And there are many, many modules on Drupal.org. I don't even know the total number, but as you can see in each category, for example, administration, there are 320 modules, 53 event modules. So there are many, many modules. So we're starting out with some that, like I said, I think are pretty essential. You can browse by category. You can browse by name. Which will basically give you a list of modules that alphabetically that you can scroll through, or you can search on modules by date. And these are based on the date that the module was either added or upgraded. Now, one of the benefits of signing up for an account on Drupal.org, I talked about it with the themes in the previous lesson, was that if you are signed up, you can actually filter. By and signed up and logged in. You can actually filter by the Drupal core compatibility. So, for example, if you only want to see modules that will work with Drupal 6, then and which our tutorial here is based on Drupal 6, you can filter, and you would only see modules that are compatible with Drupal 6. So very, very important. And that you have access to these types of things if you're going to be continuing to work with Drupal in the long run. In this case, I'm just going to take you right to some of the modules we need. We'll start off with Mollum, and we'll also take a look at what you'll see on the individual module pages. Each module is going to have a description that'll tell you, a bit about what it does. It might link to some other information, as this page does. And basically, Mollum provides a one-stop solution for spam and can protect comment forms, contact forms, user registration, password requests, and any node form on the site. And protection of your site is very, very important. And there are a number of other projects that provide protection. And actually, if you come to the right side here, you'll be able to see recommendations of related discussions, and you'll also be able to see projects that are related, some of them offering similar functionality. I like Mollum because it's worked very well for me on my sites protecting them, so that's why I'm recommending it here. So if we come down to the releases section, we'll also see releases, and we can see that there's a 6.x branch, which is for Drupal 6, and a 5.x branch, which is for Drupal 5. You'll see a link to download and release notes. It'll tell you what branch of Drupal it's recommended for. If we come further down to the bottom, we'll find some more links that are helpful. We can see usage statistics to see how many people are downloading this particular module. And you can see that Malum has gotten quite a bit of downloads in the last week, and you can actually see a graph here as well, and you can see this usage for all modules. So modules that are used quite a bit, we hope, are also maintained very well and are very functional and helpful. If you come down to support, you can view all issues or create them if you have an account on Drupal.org. And when you're considering a new module, I think it's always good to look through the list here to see if there's anything that is open that might cause a problem with your install. So far, I haven't had any problems with Malum, so we should be good to go. So what we want to do is we want to click download, and we're going to save each of these modules to a directory on our hard drive, and then once we save them, we're going to unzip them to a local directory. So first thing we want is Malum, then we're going to go pick up Path Auto, which automatically generates aliases, so basically URL patterns that, as in this screenshot here, you notice that there's a URL pattern that looks very, very nice, and it's customizable, which is what we like. So we're going to download the 6th version of that. Next thing we're going to pick up is a what you see is what you get editor called FCK editor. Go down to download. And one thing you'll notice here on FCK editors is you can see that there's a 6.x release candidate 6, which is recommended, and then there's also an alpha. And the alpha will always be a little bit less stable than other types of releases. So we're just going to go with the one that's recommended for the 6th release right now, which is 6.x 1.3 release candidate 6. We'll download that. And one thing that we'll also see down here this is a couple of development snapshots, and development snapshots are basically versions that are currently in the midst of development and probably won't be 100% stable. If you click on release notes for each of these, you can see some messages that tell you something about it. We're going to be safe, and we're going to stick with the ones that are recommended for Drupal 6. Next thing, we're going to... Now, one more thing we want to do with FCK Editor is, first thing we're also going to need to do is follow this link. And you can see to use FCK Editor in Drupal, you'll need to download the FCK Editor. So we're going to download this, which is separate. So very, very important that we download the FCK editor from the source site along with the module from Drupal.org. So for FCK editor, that's 2 downloads. Very important to understand that, and you can see that this link right here tells you, or this section right here tells you that this is required, and so we're going to need to download that as well. Next thing we're gonna next module is going to be IMCE. And IMCE is going to allow us to upload images more easily. And then finally, we're going to go get poor man's cron, which is which runs cron on the Drupal site, and I'll explain a little bit more about cron after we get that installed. So we'll download that for version 6. Okay, so now we have all the items that we want to download, and what we need to do now is go back to our localhost Drupal installation. So what you'll need to do is get your WAMP server, or if you're not using WAMP server, whatever local server that you're using started, and then head over to that site. And let's get logged in. Okay, so now we're going to get started. Now, before we can actually administer these modules on the site, what we want to do is unzip everything and then put it in a folder of our Drupal installation at the location of sites all modules. So I'm going to open the Windows Explorer here, and we're going to take those files that we've unzipped and we're going to put them in the proper locations. Okay, so I have the modules that I downloaded. I unzipped them into these directories, which you can see right here. And what I want to do is I want to take the Drupal modules and the Drupal modules only, and I want to put them into a folder called Sites All Modules. So I'm going to start with FCK Editor. I'm going to copy that, and we're going to come back over to our Drupal site, which was Drupal 2, and I'm going to go to Sites All, and notice that, remember in the last lesson we created a themes folder. Well, now we're going to create a modules folder, and so this is what you want to do is you want to put all of the extra modules that you download, all the contributed modules, into Sites All Modules, and you just want to drop them in there. Okay, so we pasted FCK Editor in there. Now, FCK Editor, if you remember, we had 2 downloads for that. And what we want to do is we want to take the second download, which is FCK Editor 2.63 at this point, and we're going to drop that inside the other directory we also created. So we're going to copy it. We'll go back to our Sites All Modules, and we've already got FCK Editor here. And we're going to see we already have this directory, and it says copy here. We're just going to go in, and I'm just going to do an edit paste. And it says this folder already contains a folder named FCK Editor. Yes, we want to place that in the folder and replace the FCK Editor folder that already exists. And what we should see is now that within our FCK Editor, there's another FCK Editor folder that has the FCK Editor that we had downloaded from that other website. So that's a very, very important step with FCK Editor. Now let's go back to our modules. And so we got FCK Editor. We want to pick up IMCE. And we'll copy and paste that over. And you'll want to do the same thing for the rest of the modules that we downloaded. Malum, we're going to want to copy over. Path Auto. And poor man's cron. Now, if you were if you're doing this once your site is online, the only difference is instead of copying it and pasting it from one directory in your on your hard drive to another, is that you would just use an FTP file transfer protocol tool to just upload the modules to the site's all modules folder. So now that these folders are located in the site's all modules folder, our Drupal install should recognize them automatically, and we should be able to find them in our admin section. So we're going to minimize this and go back to our sample Drupal site and go to administer. And then we are going to go to the modules under site building. We've been here in a previous lesson when we enabled some of the standard core modules. If you remember, like we enabled blog and we enabled path and search, but now we see that we have other modules here, and that wasn't there before. And you can collapse these, and what we want to do is we just want to select our modules. Now, one thing we see here was I missed something with Path Auto. We need to have a module called token, and this is one of the things that that's good about the Drupal interface is if you're missing something, it will tell you that. So we can see that it depends on path, that's enabled. It depends on token. So what we're going to do is we're going to go out and get token on Drupal.org. Just by going to drupal.org/project/token. We're going to download this, and we can unzip that and place it in the site's all modules directory. Just like the other ones. So I'm zipping this now. And then I'll copy it over. Modules, and now we can see we have token. Let's copy that. And we're going to paste that into Sites All Modules. So when I come back and refresh this page, we should be good to go. And now we can see that we've got token there. And we're going to just enable all these, including token actions. So here's what this should look like. And we're going to save that configuration. Now, once we've saved the configuration, what we need to do is take a look at each of these one by one to make sure that they're configured. And I know that we're going to require some action with Malum. Okay, so when the when the modules are enabled, we should see a message that says the configuration options have been saved. And what the next thing to do is to head over to administration by module and get each one of these modules set up. And let's start with FCK editor. Two things you'll always want to look at: permissions and any settings that you may need to change. So here we can see you have options for FCK editor. We have options for Malum, and for example with Malum we can indicate that certain people can post without any checking to the Malum database. We have Path Auto permissions, and IMCE. I think we should have some permissions for IMCE as well. Maybe we don't. So we're not going to change any of these right now, but again, it's an important step that when you have your site live and online and outside people are going to be using it, that you do adjust the permissions, and that's something we'll do before we have it all set up and get ready to put it online. Now the second thing you want to do is look at settings. So you'll see that here's the name of the module, and this is basically going to be a link to the settings for FCK Editor. And there's really not much that we need to change on this right now. We're just going to keep it really, really simple. One of the things that we want to do is we're going to want to update our default profile by clicking Edit. And we want to select File Browser Settings, because we uploaded a module called IMCE Browser that we could use with FCK Editor. And we're going to select File Browser Type IMCE, and we're going to save that. And right now it's also going to tell us there is currently no role with the Access FCK Editor permission, and that's fine because again we only need this right now for the the top level administrative user. We will come back, and when we set up some more roles, we will adjust the access at that time. If we want to see an example of the FCK Editor in action, we should be able to just go to Create Content, Blog Entry, and this is what that FCK Editor looks like. And you can see that we have options to put in, rich text, basically. And I can select it. I can click the bold. I could click the underline, the italic. So it's much like Microsoft Word, and this will make it very user-friendly for you to create pages and also to create blog posts. Next thing now there's one more thing that we'll want to do before we can finish setting this up. It's pretty important that when you're using FCK Editor that your input format is full HTML. Okay, an input format is a feature of Drupal that basically restricts the kind of content that can be put into a particular field. It's really for protection of your site, and we're going to want to make full HTML the default. So if we go back to Administer, and we come down to Input Formats here, we're going to select full HTML as the default format. And that'll work much better with FCK Editor than the filtered HTML format, which really only allows you to put in limited types of content into the post editor. Okay, so if we go back to our Administer Modules section at Admin by Module, we also can take a look at some of these other modules that we've added. Malum actually requires that you have a key from the Malum website. So what you need to do is you need to go out to malum.com, and you're going to need to sign up for an account there. And when you sign up for your account, and I'll show you this by logging into my account, it will provide you with a public key and a private key. Now, we don't need to use this right now because we're not online, and we don't actually need to protect our website. But basically you come up here, create an account, manage sites, And I have a couple of different sites that I'm running Malum on, and once we take this site online later in the tutorial or lessons, we're going to come back to this step of getting Malum online. So that's what we need to do from Malum. You're going to need to get signed up on Malum.com, and it's free for smaller sites, and then we're going to need to come back and put those keys in. Let's go back to administer. We covered Malum, we covered FCK editor. Let's go to Path Auto. Path Auto we can actually administer by heading over to administer URL aliases here, which is under site building. And what this basically allows us to do is, if we want, we can manually add an alias, which is, for example, instead of mysite.com/node/1, we could change that to mysite.com/about, and we'll show that when we start creating some content on the site. Now, a key for Path Auto is the automated alias settings, and what this is going to allow us to do, if we click on automated alias settings, is when we create a particular, for example, something that we create repeatedly, like blog posts. When we create a blog post, we're going to want a particular path that is going to show up each time. So that would come under node path settings. So in this particular case, whenever we created a post, we would see the default path which would show up would be content/title raw, and that title raw comes from these replacement patterns here. And so what this really allows us to do is build our node, build our paths to our posts any way we want them. So in this case, if we set this up, and for example, for all blog entry paths, every time we created a blog entry, let's say we would want it to be /blog, and then, or let's say year, month, day, blog/year, the 2-digit month, and then the 2-digit day, and then we'd want the title, which would be this title raw. So that would give us an automated path. Every time would be /blog, year, month, day, and then the title. For example, for pages, we might just want the title. And then same thing for stories as well. Now, if we didn't put anything in these fields, the default pattern would be content/title raw. So what we could do is just make this title raw and blank these out. And what this will basically deliver you is simply the default path would be the title of the page. And we have some other options on dealing with alias. What kind of separators should there be in the titles? Change characters to lowercase. The maximum length of these aliases. Bulk alias updates if you want to change aliases on the site. Things to remove from the aliases. And you can remove all these if you want. If you want, for example, your complete titles to show up. And there are also settings for punctuation as well. And we're going to leave all these standard settings, and we're just going to simply make the changes that we've made here. So we're going to save that configuration. Next thing we're going to do is take a look at the configuration for IMCE, and we're going to go back to admin by module. And we come to IMCE. And basically, you have these basic profiles. You don't really need to change anything here right now. So we can just leave that as it is. And we're going to take a closer look at this once we start adding content. Now we can also create directories. For example, here you can create subdirectories for your users. Multiple directory creation is possible with the star character. And so if you wanted to create directories for each of your users using this, you could do that. But right now we're just going to look at a single user who's building a website and producing a website, and you really shouldn't need to change any of these settings. And some other things here: enable inline file insertion into plain text. We are using a what you see is what you get editor, so we don't need to do that. And check if you want it to return absolute file URLs. We don't really care about that right now. And default behavior for existing files during uploads: keep the existing file and rename the new one. So we're fine with that. We're fine with all those settings. Final thing we want to look at is poor man's cron. And we're going to go back to by module, administration by module, and what poor man's cron does is it is a scheduler that will run the cron.php file on your site. The cron.php file, which will be at your site /cron.php. And you won't see anything there, but what we did was we just ran it. Cron is very important for a number of reasons. It will index the content on your site for search. And it will also check with Drupal.org for status updates of your Drupal install or your Drupal modules. So if we go to administer and we come down to status report, each time cron runs, it will check whether your modules and your themes and your core of Drupal are up to date. And you can see this checkbox here. If we click the up to date link, we can see that we get a list of what we have installed and whether they're up to date or not. And if we want to check at any time, of course, we can always check manually by clicking this link right here. But it's very helpful to have something that automates that. And cron, we're going to go back to poor man's cron. Basically, poor man's cron will run your cron.php file at least every hour when someone visits your website. Now, if someone doesn't visit your website every hour, then it's not going to get run every hour. It will get run when someone does visit the site after that hour. So right now here it's set to 60 minutes, which would be that 1 hour. If you wanted it run sooner and people visited your website sooner, then you could change that from 60 to 30 minutes or 15 minutes. We're just going to leave it at 60. While we're on localhost here, it'll only be run when when we visit it, and of course we have to be connected to the internet. Other than that, it tells you, will it log successful cron runs? Will it log the progress? And we're going to say no. We're just going to leave these default settings, and we should be fine. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up in this particular lesson of the Getting Started with Drupal series. We've added a number of contributed modules. We've taken a look at the basic configuration for each of those modules, and these contributed modules are really going to help us to get more out of our Drupal site and extend the experience. What we're going to do in the next lesson is we're going to start adding some content. We're going to start adding some static pages, and we'll also get started a little bit with the menus. So thanks for watching this lesson in the Get It Started with Drupal series. Check out the website at learnbythedrop.com for a lot more helpful content on the Drupal platform.